Hi, hello, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to episode 1 of History Nerds Over Analyzing Movies with Historical Context. So, aka losers sucking the fun out of everything. I'm just kidding! I'm calling myself a loser, not the viewers. Okay? This podcast is brought to you by an extensive knowledge of JFK and Paul Simon, and a love for Alan Rickman, so. I don't know what I'm talking about, okay? Anyways, let's get on with this podcast episode. I hope you think this is somewhat funny. If you don't, that's okay. My name is Mick. Today I'm going to be talking about a movie called Die Hard. Die Hard is a action thriller film that was released in 1988. It's a Christmas movie, whether you like it or not. That's just my opinion, though. I just think it's a Christmas movie because it takes place at a Christmas party, but I believe it was released in July, so I guess. But people are like, oh yeah, what's Christmassy about getting your head blown up? Well, it takes place at a Christmas party. Ode to Joy is played. There's so many Christmas signs in Die Hard. But anyways, that's just your opinion, my opinion, enough jibber jabber. Let's get on with this episode. So it was released in 1988. It was directed by John McTiernan. I don't know a lot about him, so we're not going to be discussing him a lot, especially because the point of this is history and movies. Sorry, John McTiernan, by the way. It stars Alan Rickman and Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis is an American actor. He has... Hey! I don't know if you can hear that. He has starred in a lot of blockbuster hits, such as, like, Armageddon. That's the only one I get. Oh, he was in Sixth Sense. M. Night Shyamalan. And Alan Rickman is an English actor. This was kind of, like, his breakout role. He was kind of like a stage actor before this, and he had some guest roles in some English sitcoms. He is more of, like, he was in more, like, English movies. So he was in like Love Actually, and he's in Sweeney Todd, and if you don't know who I'm talking about, he was Snape in Harry Potter. So it was released, so we'll talk about the plot of the movie in a minute, but it was released right before the end of the Cold War, which this is important. If you don't know what the Cold War is, it was a war between the United States and the USSR, now known as Russia, formerly known as the USSR. It was not so much of a, like, fighting war like World War II was. It's just, like I said, it's cold. There's not a lot of, it was a lot of, like, he said, she said kind of type thing. This war was from about 1945 to the early 1990s. There were more proxy wars going on, if that makes sense. So, like, wars being fought, like, smaller wars being fought in other countries. And, like, other little, events and crises, like the Cuban Missile Crisis. So there were a lot of United States presidents that were president through this time. I think Eisenhower was the first one. That's probably not right, but all the way to 1990. I don't know why I started talking about presidents, because clearly I don't know which presidents were part of the Cold War, except Kennedy and Nixon and Ronald Reagan. And that's about all I know. But anyways, that's not important. So what's important to note is that this is an American-made movie, right? Released in America. Well, it was definitely released in other countries, but it was made predominantly for an American audience by an American director with mainly American actors, right? So the plot of Die Hard is John McClane, Bruce Willis plays John McClane. He is New York police officer. He goes to Los Angeles to visit his wife at her work Christmas party on Christmas Eve. And they're kind of separated, kind of not. They have some issues going on that are resolved by the end of the film. And he gets there, they're kind of arguing, but they're like, it's Christmas Eve. We need to be in the Christmas spirit, you know? And then a group of terrorists shows up. And they're German terrorists, which is important to note. And I'm going to give more historical background to this. Germany, during the Cold War, was separated into East and West territories. One was controlled by the USSR, it was under a communist regime, and the other was controlled, well, not controlled, but it was kind of under the US capitalist regime. And the United States, during the Cold War, was trying to contain the contain the idea of communism in European countries. So they would send military, money, supplies over to these European countries for the policy of containment to try and not have communism spread in Europe after what happened in World War II. So Germany was kind of like divided, right? And so these German terrorists, so Die Hard is kind of like a Marvel movie in the sense that the, quote, good guys are American and the, quote, bad guys are some like foreign power from Europe. And so, good guys, this is all with quotes, I'm not trying to be xenophobic, right? American power, John McClane, good guy. Well, he's a good guy in the film, but like, hypothetically speaking, Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber, foreign power, probably communist, bad guy. He is a bad guy in the film, but in hypothetical terms. So, what I think, you can interpret this movie however you want. The point of this is not to tell you what is happening in this movie. My opinion is right. The point of this is to tell you what my opinion is. I think, okay, yeah, so the German, I'll get to that, back to my original thought in a second. German terrorists come and crash the party, and they're just kind of looking for money. Which sounds weird, but they go to the boss, the CEO, and they're like, we want the codes to the safe so we can rob you of the money. And he's like, well, I don't know the safe codes. And they shoot him dead. Okay. John McClane realizes this is not good. They're terrorists. And he kind of goes on like a wild goose chase trying to fight them throughout the whole movie. He is like the hero, the saving grace of the movie. Alan Rickman, Hans Gruber, is the leader of these terrorists, and yeah, it's very obvious that he's German. He says they're German, and they just want money, but if they don't get their money, they're going to kill people. I think these German terrorists symbolize communists, and which is exactly what the US was trying to stop. Successful in some countries, successful in not. The USSR is still communist, whether they say they are or not. I think the German terrorists in this movie represent communists, but that is never explicitly stated because that could have made some people mad, okay? Because communism was and always has been a hot topic in America, and at the time the Cold War was still going on. Do I think there would have been a lot of conflict if this director said, hey, these guys are communists in the film, we hate them? There probably wouldn't have been a terribly big issue, but there could have been some kind of domino effect, right? Because it would have been like, whoa, to say, hey, these people, communists. These bad guys in this film, these terrorists, communists. Like, that could have caused some issues. But, like, they do come from a country that had fallen to a regime that was dangerous in the movie and in real life. So I think that the director was trying to say, hey, these guys come from the communist part of Germany. But it would have been not okay to say that. And at the end, throughout the movie, John McClane is running around the tower trying to, quote, defeat these terrorists. And he kills one of them, but he's like, you're not going to get away with this. And at the end, he throws Hans Gruber, the leader of this terrorist group, off of the tower, and Hans Gruber dies, symbolizing like the death of this terrorist group, but also, in my opinion, the death of communism. So, again, the Cold War ended shortly after this movie was released, but it would have been kind of problematic to say, hey, these bad guys, these terrorists are communists. So, do with this information what you will, and I hope you enjoyed this small analysis of Die Hard.